Hi, this is Usha. Welcome to Rathod Science classes. Today in this lecture, we are going to discuss current affairs of 11th July 2021. In this lecture, we are going to discuss 7 topics which are very much relevant to UPSC. So let's get started with our discussion and let us see first topic. So I want to say one thing, this Sunday's newspaper is very important to cover science and technology and also environment related current affairs. So please don't skip this Sunday's newspaper. So first let us see article. Title says government infra spending dropped sharply in Q1. So this article mainly focusing on government infrastructure spending. So in other words, it is also called as a capital spending, right? Capital spending means whenever we want to create any asset. For example, I can say roads or dams or any developmental projects. When we are going for those, so these type of spending which is coming from government, that is called as capital spending or infra spending. So I hope you understand what is infra spending. So if you're talking about the government side, it will get revenue and also expenditure. So this expenditure again will be divided into revenue expenditure and as well as capital expenditure, right? So this capital expenditure, it is nothing but infra expenditure. So it is mainly used for going for any developmental projects like roads or any dams or any school buildings or any hospitals, etc. So why it is important here? So you need to think about what is importance of this capital expenditure. So with this capital expenditure, so this is the money which is mainly spending by government, right? So government, whenever it is spending money for creation of so and so assets, then what happens? So this will be finally helpful. So how it is helpful? Whenever they are going for any projects, so to complete those projects, they need labor, right? So for labor, we can go for taking of labor from that area. So that will leads to some income and as well as livelihood opportunities for local people. So this is the first important thing. And next one is, for example, if you are going for construction of any road means, so there is a well transportation that will be established. So whenever there is a well transportation established, then that will lead to development of that area. But how? Because whenever there is a good transportation, so if I am a company, so if I am a company owner, so if I want to set any company in any area, first I look about whether the labor is available or not, whether good transportation is available or not, raw materials available or not, so if I have investment or not. So in these things, wherever there is a good well infrastructure or well transportation that is available, so I can set up my company here in this area. So whenever I am setting up any company here, that means so I need labor to work in my company. So whoever the people who are present there, I will be taking into my company and I will be giving job opportunities. So in this way, whenever capital expenditure which is spending by government, so you can understand how many advantages is there. So first of all, that leads to increase in development of that area, and we can also provide some employment opportunities in short term and also long term, and as well as there will be finally that will leads to economy of our country. For example, if I am setting company here, so whatever the output which is there, that will be accounted in our GDP, right? So in this way, these are many benefits whenever government is going for expenditure. So that too, in this COVID-19 pandemic, already we are seeing economic crisis, right? So in this economic crisis, we need a push to move our economy front, right? So for this context, government expenditure is very, very important. So I hope you got many dimensions how to think about this topic, right? So now let us try to see this topic in very great detail. So this topic, it is important from GS3 point of view under economy. So if you're talking about this article which is mainly focusing on infra spending. So second wave of this COVID-19 and steep decline in new investment projects from government agencies. And what happened, there is also fresh investment plans in countries that dipped. So this article mainly says that because of this COVID-19 second wave, so we went for again shutdown or national or localized lockdowns in many states. So because of this, what happened? There is steep decline in our investment projects from government agencies. So whenever we are going for lockdown, so labor will not come, right? And they will not work. So because of this, whatever the infrastructure projects or investment projects which are coming up by government, there is a steep decline in them. And not only regarding that, but also regarding fresh investment plans in our economy also dipped 18%. So why there is decrease in investments? Because of this second wave of this COVID-19, so government is facing many challenges, like there is lack of supply of oxygen, first of all, and there is increase in health burden in healthcare infrastructure. And not only this, there is increase in number of cases and as well as death that is experienced in this second wave. So because of all these reasons, here there is expenditure increased on this healthcare infrastructure to government. So because of this, there is a dip in this investment plans in economy. So these are some analysis point of view. So now let us try to see some more details. So details mainly says that capital spending to revive the economy, which is mainly decreased, and public infrastructure investments also almost halved. Okay. So from public also regarding this infrastructure investment, that also decreased to 50%. And overall new investments both from union government and as well as state government, they also fell by 41.6%. And new public sector immigration and manufacturing projects, they also fell down, okay, by 96 to 97% respectively. So these are some important things which are mainly said in this article, and I hope this is very clear now. Let us move on to next topic. Title says Meghalaya rises concern over Assam bill. So this article mainly talking about Assam's one important bill. So now let us try to talk about this topic, and this is important regarding GS paper 2 point of view, which mainly comes under polity. So first let us see context. Here this article mainly talking about Assam cow protection bill. So recently one important bill, that is Assam cow protection bill proposed by Assam government. So this bill mainly talking about to stop transportation of cattle or use of state for transit of bovine animals, so which mainly raised concern over neighboring states. So as we know, Assam came up with this cow protection bill. So this bill mainly prohibits or stop transportation of cattle and as well as some bovine animals to other states. So nearby states, if you see like Meghalaya, Mizoram and Nagaland, they are mainly Christian majority states. They consume beef a lot. So in this context, because of this bill which is proposed by Assam, which mainly affecting transportation of this cattle to these nearby states. So in this context, Mizoram and Nagaland, they chosen not to react to this bill of Assam. But Meghalaya says that no. Meghalaya said that it would seek centre's intervention if Assam's cattle preservation bill 2021 affects people and as well as economy of that state. So if you're talking about some facts regarding this bill, so this bill mainly seeks to replace Assam Cattle Preservation Act of 1950. So this Act of 1950 mainly allows slaughter of cattle above 14 years of age after approval from local veterinary officers. So after cattle which got age more than 14 years, so these cattle that can be slaughtered according to this Assam Cattle Preservation Act of 1950. And now this new bill says that there is no transportation of cattle or bovine animals. Okay, so this is just of this topic. And if there is any development regarding this topic, we are going to discuss in our future classes. Now let us see one more interesting topic in fact, that is Sikkim blossoms, state home to 27% of India's flowering plants. So let me know any student who is from Sikkim or not in comment box. So this article mainly talking about Sikkim blossoms. So state it is home to 27% of India's flowering plants. So this article mainly focusing on species diversity in Sikkim. And we need to know about what are the reasons why 27% of India's flowering plants are located in Sikkim. Then that part will be important from our mains and also prelims point of view. So this article will be important regarding GS paper 3, which mainly comes under environment and ecology. So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So if you see context, it mainly says that Botanical Survey of India, that is BSI, which came with publication list. In this list, it mainly said that 4,912 naturally occurring species, they are located in Sikkim. So if you see some more details, so Sikkim, which is the very smallest state and less than 1% of India's landmarks, which is mainly seen in Sikkim, and it is mainly home to 27% of all flowering plants. So if you see area wise, it is very much less, that is less than 1%. But if you see share of flowering plants, it has 27% of all flowering species or all flowering plants that are mainly seen in Sikkim. So if you see details, it mainly says that total number of naturally occurring flowering plants in the country, they include about 18,004 species, and out of this 4,912 species of diversity of flowering plants, they are seen in Sikkim itself. And why? What is the reason behind it? So first one here is, so it mainly comes under Kanchenjunga biosphere. Okay, so this state will comes under part of this Kanchenjunga biosphere, and we can see here different attitudinal ecosystems. So different attitudes, that means different height of ecosystem that can be seen here. So because of this reason, it is mainly providing opportunities for herbs and trees to grow and thrive in this area. And in this Kanchenjunga biosphere, we can see wide range of forests like subalpine vegetation to temperate and even tropical types of forests that is seen here. So because of this state has different kinds of vegetation. So this is important reason that you need to know, and this reason will be important from your mains point of view. Now let us try to see this next topic. Title says life on Enceladus. So you need to know what is this Enceladus. So if you see this image, something which will clicks in your mind, right? So planet with rings around it. This is Saturn. And it is a moon of Saturn. Okay, so this is Enceladus. So one important prelims fact you need to remember here is largest moon of Saturn is Titan, right? And it is one of the moons of Saturn, that is Enceladus. So this article mainly talking about recently one study, that is Cassini spacecraft, mainly found out that on this Enceladus, so there is a high amount of methane, carbon, and as well as some elements that are seen in high proportion here. So because of this, they mainly tracing that whether life forms are existing here or not. So this is some background. So this topic will be important regarding GS paper 3, which mainly comes under science and technology. Now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. First, let us see context. Context mainly says that a study published in journal, the name of that journal is Nature Astronomy. It mainly says that data regarding analysis of data which mainly collected by Cassini spacecraft. Okay, so Cassini spacecraft mainly found that a giant water plumes erupting from Enceladus, it is one of Saturn's moon, and key findings includes either microbial activity or processes not involving life forms. They are different from those known to occur on Earth. So these findings mainly saw that either maybe these plumes are caused by microbial activity or any other process which is not involving life forms. Okay, so the matter which is not involving life forms means, so it might be different from those which is known that to occur on Earth. So if you are moving to background to understand this topic, NASA's Cassini spacecraft, which mainly detected usually high concentration of methane along with carbon dioxide and dihydrogen. So this spacecraft mainly identified high concentration of this methane and as well as carbon dioxide and as well as hydrogen. So if you're talking about how this methane is produced, it is mainly by microorganisms or organisms. So if you're talking about methane producing organisms, so most of the methane on Earth which is a biological in origin, and microorganisms, they are producing this methane are called as methanogens. So these methanogens, they are very much capable generating this methane. It is one of metabolic byproduct that can be released by these methanogens. So these methanogens or these microorganisms which releases methane, they will found in swamps and as well as dead organic matter. So here this article and this findings mainly says that it is not related to microorganisms. Then what are the other processes that could produce methane on this moon of Saturn? So first thing here is methane mainly formed by chemical breakdown. It can be formed by the chemical breakdown of organic matter, which mainly present in this Enceladus core. So in this core, whatever the micro or we can say organic matter is present, whenever the breaking of organic matter is happening, that will release methane. So this is first important thing that you need to know. And next one is by through hydrothermal processes that could help the formation of this carbon dioxide and methane. Okay, because of this hydrothermal process also we can see there will be release of this methane and carbon dioxide. And on earth we are having this hydrothermal vents on sea floors. They are known to release this methane. So because of this, these are some other processes that will leads to formation or release of this methane. And now let us move on to some more facts, that is Enceladus. So it is a very small icy moon which has an abundance of hydrogen molecules in water plumes. And if you see, it is very much famous for 98% of gas in this plumes, which is mainly found to be water, and 1% it is hydrogen, and remaining we can see mixture of molecules like carbon dioxide, methane, ammonia, etc. And even in underwater vents, they are mainly seen in this Enceladus. So it is one of hypotheses already we discussed, right? So because of this underwater vents, we can see that will also release methane. So here what happened, these underwater vents are present in this Enceladus, which mainly resembles vents which are present on Earth ocean floor. So as we all know that from Earth ocean floor that will releases this methane. So it is one of important hypothesis we can relate to this Enceladus also. So this is just of this topic. I hope it is clear. Now let us move on to next topic. Title says tipping point. So this article, if you see this image, you can understand this is about plastic pollution. So this article will be important regarding environment and ecology, which mainly comes under GS paper 2. GS paper 3. So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail, and this topic will be important from mains point of view, from not prelims actually, right? So what is this article talking about? This article mainly talking about there is increase in plastic emissions, okay, not only in India but also across world. So regarding this plastic pollution and to control this plastic pollution, so India have an aim. Our Prime Minister came up with aim of end use of single-use plastics. So you need to also incorporate that, and you need to also think in that point of view also. So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So if you're talking about this topic, it may be talking about plastic emissions. So current rates of plastic emissions across world that may trigger efforts that may not be possible to reverse. So whatever the cause or whatever the damage which is causing by this plastic emissions, what happened, that effects may not be reversible. It may be irreversible. So this is according to study published in journal Science. So in journal Science, a study published, it mainly says that the current rate of plastic emissions across the globe that may trigger effects that it may not be possible to reverse. That means whatever the effects that are causing by this plastic emissions that may not be reversed. So if you see data, it mainly says that as of 2016, total emission of plastics into water bodies, which is about 9 to 13 million metric tons per year. And if this thing which is continues, then we are going to expect this plastic waste that will be doubled by 2025. So in Pacific Ocean, we are having a great Pacific garbage patch. So to remove that, we do not have a proper technology. And whenever this plastic which is coming and which is dumping into oceans and rivers, finally they, because of movement of water, okay, we know that warm ocean currents are there, cold ocean currents are there. So they will be moving in so and so direction, right? So because of this in Pacific Ocean, we can see a large Pacific garbage patch is present. And whenever animals which are feeding on this plastic, that will leads to some problems on their health, and as well as that will wipe out biodiversity in that area. And we are also facing one more problem like microplastic. So whatever the plastic we are throwing outside, it will be degraded into microparticles, and these microparticles are transmitted through food chain also. So this is also one important cause of concern. Okay, so these are some important problems regarding this plastic, and let me know some interesting things from you people regarding what your opinion on this plastic pollution, right? So if you see significance of this study, it mainly says that plastic pollution along with environment triggers which mainly leads to exacerbation of climate change, and we can also see there will be loss of this oceanic biodiversity also. So these are some important significance of this study. And now let us move on to next topic. Title says, can schools be reopened during pandemic? So this is a one of running and debatable topic that is going on, right? So because of this COVID-19 pandemic which entered into our lives, so especially in India from March 22nd onwards, government imposed national-wide lockdown. So from March 22nd 2020 onwards till now, it is almost 1.5 years, so schools have been shut down, and as well as colleges, universities. The schools which are present in urban areas and having some infrastructure, they are moving toward online education or online teaching. But what is the position of these schools which do not have proper infrastructure, small startups, and as well as government schools? And recently we also saw one report like there is decrease in use of internet and computers are not present in government schools, right? So because of all these things, now we can see there is increasing digital divide, the gap between digital haves and digital have-nots, right? So we already discussed all the thing which in a very great detail, right? So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So this article will be important regarding GS paper 2 under education point. So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So if you see data, it mainly says that by end of June 2021, over 150 million children in 19 countries, they are attending virtual classes, or some students, they do not have even schooling, no schooling at all. For example, for students who are from rural areas, from 1 to 7th class, there is no online classes at all. I saw personally in my family, okay? So because of that, I am saying that if I ask my children about what is this, like some basics also, they forgot even ABCD also. So this is the practicality I am saying. So I am not saying anything wrong. So please don't take me wrong, like because whatever the thing I am saying around us, so I am giving some practical examples, right? So by end of June 2021, over 150 million children in 19 countries, they are attending virtual classes or online classes. So online classes will be available only for the children who are having some smartphones or laptops or tablets or etc. But if you see, I want to say one reality. So if in rural areas, if father having a smartphone, so they will go for fields. So whenever they are going for fields for kharif sowings or so and so, then what happened, the mobile phone will also be carried away by father. So the children who is staying in home, he do not have access to mobile phone to listen online classes. So this is a practicality that I am saying. So by end of June 2021, over 150 million children in 19 countries, they are attending virtual classes or they had no schooling at all. And if you say because of this global pandemic, government imposed national-wide lockdown in March 2020. So because of this, we are going for this online classes. So for this online classes, parents, teachers, administrators, government and children, they raised major concerns over this potentiality decision of school going children. So if you see, because of this recent second wave of this coronavirus, now it made everyone more anxious and as well as apprehensive regarding safety and as well as well-being of children. Because now on one side we are seeing loss of education for these children, and if parents are trying to make their children to sit and to study through online classes, so sometimes it is not much effective. So whenever they want to send their children for school, they are not daring much to send their children because of this COVID-19. So also not only this loss of education we are facing, but also their social mental well-being with with hitter to unknown long-term consequences. When there is a loss of education that is seen, so whenever students or children are not in contact with their books for more than 2 years, then that means they will lose their basic knowledge also. So because of this, we can see there will be long-term impact on life of children. So now children, what they will do if there is no school means they will sit before television, or they will take mobile phones and they will play games, and as well as they will do some other activities, right? So what happened because of this, whatever the interest they used to present in education, that will be lost by children because of this. So finally that will have some long-term consequences on life of children at last. So if you are talking about recent studies, it mainly says that SARS coronavirus 2 regarding this overall risk of infection remains much lower than that compared to of adults. So if you are comparing with children and adults, whatever the impact that is seen in adults, that is not seen in children. Okay, so this study mainly suggests that children, they are half as susceptible to infection as compared to that of adults. And due to the biological difference of having fewer ACE2 receptors, that too mostly in upper respiratory tract. So what happened in children, if you see this ACE2 receptors are very much less in number than compared to that of adults. As you know, in this coronavirus, spike protein will attaches to these ACE2 inhibitors to enter into cell. So here the number of these ACE inhibitors are very much less when we are comparing to that of adults. So this is the one important reason we can see children are half as susceptible to infection as compared to that of adults. And next one is mutations in spike proteins. For example, beta and as well as delta variants, children will continue to be less susceptible as long as ACE2 receptors, they remain the major binding sites. So as you know, there is few number of this ACE2 receptor. So we can say that children will continue to be less susceptible even though if you are getting number of variables like lambda and as well as kappa, etc. And next one is 90% of infections among children, they are asymptomatic and as well as mild infections. So only 1 to 2% of children, they require intensive care unit management, but not to all. And this one is even according to study which done by Indian Academy of Pediatrics, it mainly says that there is low incidence of deaths in children. And this one is most life-threatening complication that can be seen in children is multi-system inflammatory syndrome, and children who are suffering from this syndrome also, they are recovering very well with a few number of deaths, that is just 12 out of 1 lakh children. And even nationwide sero survey reported that proportion of children of 10 to 17 years old with prior infection was similar to that of adults, around 25%. Okay, it mainly says that children, they are not at a higher risk of infection. And even global studies mainly says that globally and in India, schools have never been reported as a focal point of any super spreader event. So if you see what is a super spreader means, if one person got coronavirus positive, means this person will have ability to transmit this coronavirus to large number of people. For example, if you see in a medical shop, pharmacy, let us say a pharmacy, and there is a pharmacist who is present. He got coronavirus, and to this medical shop there will be daily 100 people or more than 100 people, they will come to take medicines. So this will be super spreader person. And next one is if there is a street vendor who is mainly selling vegetables daily in streets, right? So in that context also, this street vendor will be the super spreader. Okay, so here this report or global studies mainly says that schools have never been reported on as a focal point of a super spreader event. And this one is COVID-19 transmission among students in schools, which was much lower than community level. Okay, so in this context, what can be done? So if we want to reopen schools, so we need to take a safe written plan. So first one here is we need to entail stringent adherence to universal masking for staff. So whoever the staff they are present, either teachers or working people, or we can say ayas, so they need to use mask for sure. And students also, they need to use mask, and they need a need of a proper hand hygiene, and we need to maintain physical distancing in schools, and also adequate ventilation is required. So if there is any chance of conducting outdoor classes, then it will be well and good. So these outdoors, they need to be used as a classroom rather than a compact classroom. Okay. And next one is classroom routines. They will have to be redesigned to limit student interactions inside and as well as outside. So for example, we need to go for fewer classes per day. So we need to go for not a lengthy classes from morning 9 to evening 5. We need to go for 9 to 12 or 9 to 1, etc. And even duration of class should be short. And we need to go for high levels of testing and contact tracing. And we need to go for routine testing of children, because most of these children who are getting this COVID-19, they are asymptomatic. So in these conditions, we can go for routine testing of children once or twice in a week. So these are some things we need to follow when we want to go for reopening of schools. So now let us try to see next topic. So before saying next topic, I want to make a small announcement on this platform. So if you want to clear UPSC 2022, we came up with one excellent, highly beneficial and as well as highly economical course, that is Current Affairs package along with mains answer writing practice. So how this course will be useful to clear this UPSC 2022? So one thing you need to remember here is, before entering into examination hall, you need to know at least 1.5 years current affairs for sure. Okay, to cover this 1.5 years current affairs, this is right time, okay, to join this course to cover this 1.5 years current affairs. And why you need to focus on this current affairs? Because in prelims, in mains, and even in interview, so you will get questions from current affairs. And you need to master current affairs to clear this UPSC. And if you're talking about mains answer writing practice, many students who are especially beginners or freshers, they ignore this mains answer writing practice. Even though if you are doing hard work and if you are not focusing on answer writing practice, you cannot clear UPSC mains even though you cleared prelims. So in this course, we are mainly focusing on how to improve your mains answer writing skills. And next important thing here is, if you join this course, we also conduct prelims test on every Sunday and we provide a video explanation part. So in this way, this course which is mainly designed as per demand of UPSC. So finally, I want to say one thing. Please don't take this course as a choice. Try to join this course as soon as possible and achieve your dream of clearing UPSC. And apart from this course, we also launch Indian Geography. So if you are lagging in that, you can also take that course. And within 15 days, we are going to launch Modern History, Economy and Ancient History. So that courses will also be available soon. So details of these courses are given in description box. So please see that once. And if you want to talk to me directly, you can call to this number 8074765513. Now let's come back and let us say next topic. Title says Cuba develops the world's first conjugate vaccine for COVID-19. So here in this article, we need to focus on this, what is this conjugate vaccine, because you can expect a prelims based question regarding recently this conjugate vaccine. It is seen in news, so what it is related to. And next type of question, like you can expect, so recently first conjugate vaccine for this COVID-19 developed by which country? So in these two ways you can expect questions. So now let us try to see this topic in a very great detail. So this topic, it is important regarding GS paper 3 under science and technology. So here you can also expect a map based question regarding this Cuba. So please open your atlas and see some map based related things regarding this Cuba. So now let us try to see about this, what is this conjugate vaccine. So context mainly says that Cuba state-run corporation which indigenously produced Sorberana 2 vaccine. It is about 91.2% efficacy in phase 3 trials. So this article mainly says that in phase 3 clinical trials, so Cuba developed one in phase 3 clinical trials of this Sorbera vaccine. So it is one of conjugate vaccine and mainly developed indigenously by state-run corporation of Cuba. So if you see some details, it mainly says that conjugate vaccine means what? First you have to know that. So conjugate vaccine means it is a type of vaccine, so in which we are combining weak antigen plus strong antigen. So we are combining weak antigen plus strong antigen as a carrier. So we are using strong antigen as a carrier and we are incorporating weak antigen also. So our immune system will respond to those antigens and it will have a stronger response to this weaker antigen. So this type of vaccines is called as a conjugate vaccine. So the design and manufacturing allows this vaccine to be stored at regular refrigerator settings between 2 to 8 degrees centigrade. And if you are talking about most common conjugate vaccines, they are mainly used for Haemophilus influenza type B and as well as pneumococcal bacteria. So it is not the first time we came with this conjugate vaccine, but this is first conjugate vaccine for this coronavirus. So now let us try to understand what is the meaning of this conjugate. A conjugate means a type of vaccines. So this mainly joins a protein to an antigen in order to improve protection from this vaccine provides. So whatever the vaccine which is mainly provides immune system like antibodies, so this will be for longer term. Okay, so this is a type of vaccines in which we are mainly joining a protein to an antigen, that is for example polysaccharides. Okay, so this is about this topic. So I hope it is clear. By this we are concluding today. I hope you enjoyed this lecture. Please subscribe to my channel and don't forget to like, share and comment my videos. And don't forget to enroll to this Indian Geography and Current Affairs package. Thank you so much.